Welcome to On the Beat, where we bring you a different Buffalo Bills beat reporter every week, exclusively on the Overreaction Sports Network.
Well, what is going on, everybody? Welcome everybody into On the Beat on the Overreaction Sports Network, powered by Believe, a show where we bring you a different Buffalo Bills beat reporter or journalist every single week to talk about our beloved Buffalo Bills. And this week, we're going to be talking about the Buffalo Bills hosting the Denver Broncos in Super Wild Card Weekend, as they like to call it. My name is Joe Miller. You can find me on Twitter at Joe Miller Wired. That guy sitting over there is former Buffalo Bill for 10 years, John Fina, former first-round pick of the Buffalo Bills, John Fina. It's so good to have every single one of you guys joining us. Do us a favor. Whatever platform you are consuming this vidcast on, please subscribe if you have the opportunity to do so. Smash that like button, hit the subscribe, hit the notifications, all that good stuff. And if you're listening to this in post as a podcast, also, please subscribe, leave a review or a comment if you can. If you're looking for us on social media, you can find us anywhere on social media. All the social media platforms, just search Overreaction Buff. You'll find us. And then what else, John, am I missing? Website. We also have a website, overreactionbuffalo.com, that aggregates all of the national media news articles surrounding or that mentions our Buffalo Bills. In one click, Bills on the Wire, you can get every single national media article about the Bills there, overreactionbuffalo.com. So good to have every single one of you joining us. Repeat guest here on the Beat program. So good to have Jenna Cottrell joining us from WAM 13 in Rochester and 1/3 of the Buffalo Plus podcast. Jenna, it's so good to have you. How are you?
I was just say, yeah, welcome back, I guess, to myself. Like, I feel like I'm a friend of the podcast, friend of the video. So thank you for having me.
It's nice that your bar is so low that you came back. I really,
I want like a t-shirt for being like always on the show. I love it. And I know it's a special week, so it means a lot that for the Super Wild Card Weekend, you would bring me in.
Well, yeah, we're really happy to have you. We're always genuinely thrilled with your insights and your story. So thanks for being here.
You do a fantastic job, and that's it's as much as we feel like it's an honor to have you back. We hope that you are honored to come back and join us, because we do appreciate the commentary, the opinion, and the knowledge that you bring to it. It's super, super good. But we should probably actually, before we jump in, we haven't talked to you really since the New Year. How were your holidays? How were your New Year? Anything new? Anything special? Anything great happen?
It was great. You know, I got to spend some time with family actually this past week because my grandparents live in Rhode Island. So it was nice before the Bills Patriots game, got to see some extended family. My grandfather is literally 99 years old. So it was nice to get some quality time with him. He still lives at home. That man has figured it out, sharp as a tack. So it was nice to hang out with him before the Bills Patriots game and just get some time with family. How about you guys?
It was great out here in Arizona. We were covered in snow as usual, no driving. We had a brilliant holiday season, Thanksgiving and Christmas, tons of family. It was great. It really was. And we had news that we announced. My daughter got engaged, and we currently have Bruno home for a few more days before he goes back to Duke football. So it's been very nice.
That's lovely.
And
congrats.
Yeah, mine was good as well. We officially have an 18-year-old in our house. McKenna, my oldest, turned 18 years old. She'll be graduating in obviously in the spring. So we're now working through rent and like how she's paying for her food and like all of that kind of stuff. Because I can't have any freeloaders in this house, Jenna. I just can't have freeloaders. Like it can't happen. So, but no, that's obviously not true. But no, things were great for us too. I'm just not happy with the weather already. Like it's been 20 degrees for 4 days, and I'm just aggravated. But hopefully the lake will freeze and maybe that'll help us out with the snow. But we'll see what happens. So, let's see. So let's talk Buffalo Bills. Where do we want to start? So the Buffalo Bills finished the season 13-4, losing to the Patriots
on purpose.
Losing to the Patriots, which was amazing. This weekend was awesome, just in as much as the Patriots dropped from the number 1 pick overall to the number 4 pick overall. The Jets beat the Dolphins. So even if Denver had lost. The Dolphins couldn't get into the playoffs anyway, which was freaking fantastic. It was a great weekend all the way around. But let's talk about, I guess we should probably start with injuries, maybe. We'll start with injuries, what kind of going into this Denver Broncos game. We've got a couple guys that are kind of lingering with injuries, but it seems like this is the healthiest we've ever been going into the playoffs. And then obviously one big question mark just kind of around Amari Cooper. So why don't you start with injuries, and then if you can tell us anything you know about Amari, that'd be great too.
Yeah, so essentially Sean McDermott talked yesterday at the normal Zoom, and he said one thing kind of cropped up after the Patriots game. Like Brandon Codrington, he has a bit of a hamstring injury, so that is something that the Bills will have to figure out down the line, get updates with. In terms of other players, it seems like Terrell Bernard, Sean McDermott said no news is good news, and he has not heard any news. So I think for a lot of Bills fans, it's that exhale of it seems like Bernard is trending in the right direction, right? I expect him to play, but it's always nice to hear that. And then in terms of Amari Cooper, did not play, was excused for personal reasons. Sean McDermott said that he's not yet back with the team. At this point, we really don't know the situation. Again, it was a personal absence. But I think that right now, playing it week, like seeing how the week will play out, I expect for Amari Cooper to come back. But that being said, I do not know what is going on personally with his family. And the Bills have always made it clear that family does come first. So we'll see how this week plays out. But I think in terms of the health of this group, they're in a really great point going into the playoffs, because you're right. It feels like, Joe, every year there's like that big injury or something that happens. So, knock on wood for a lot of Bills fans, it feels like things are trending in the right direction heading into this weekend and hopefully beyond.
Very good. John?
Yeah, I just want to kind of get your take on Denver, right? Some people will gloss over the schedule and make certain assumptions about games they've won or lost. There's all kinds of lightning rods out there about the young quarterback and how good their defense is, the sack leading. I want to get your feel on it. What's your take? How any change to, how they're approaching it, and as opposed to, or in contrast to years past? Anything pop out at you?
Yeah, I think for this Broncos team, like they are ahead of schedule. I think when you draft a quarterback, you want to see how things will play out. Obviously, with Russell Wilson being gone, there was a huge cap implications for the Broncos. And I think for a lot of fans that love the Broncos, they thought, okay, this year, Sean Payton will get everything together and it'll be a rebuilding situation and all that stuff. And I think you look at what has happened. I think the win total for the Broncos projected going into the season was 5.5. So where this team is at, they've absolutely outperformed the expectations that were thought of heading into the year. I think a big piece of that is the play of Bo Nix, the rookie quarterback. Now I say rookie, but he played a ton in college, has a lot of experience in terms of that. And I think they've been able to find something on the defensive side of the ball. Like they get after the quarterback. They have 63 sacks this season. The next closest team is in the 50s with the Ravens. So they have been immensely impactful in that way. I don't love this matchup for the Bills just because of how aggressive that defensive line is. They also have Patrick Surtain, who's a really great corner. So a lot of these things where the Bills are the more talented team, but I think when I look at this Broncos team, it's like found money. They're here, they're arrived. They have no pressure because no one thought they would be here. And I think, there's a lot of young guys on that team, and sometimes you don't know what you don't know. And so I think a lot of the pressure is kind of off for them as a group. And I think that can lead to a lot of good things. Now, not having experience, especially for your quarterback, can lead to some issues too.
Well, isn't it funny? As I sit here and think back to July, how the Bills were supposed to be in a soft rebuild, and we'd be lucky if we won 6 or 7 games. And now we're 13-4. And whereas the Denver Broncos get to enjoy a no pressure situation because they weren't expected to be here, somehow the piling on to Josh Allen and the Bills for cobbling together a pretty freaking remarkable season in the face of they'll finish 3rd in the East. How is that even fair? I mean, let's take a look at that. Just because we have Josh Allen, we're supposed to be all right. Well, the expectation is what it is. And you're right, Jenna. There's tons of talent for the D-Town Bronx, and they're going to be coming with nothing to lose, as you said.
No, and you're so right about this Bills team. Like going into the season, we constantly asked on the Buffalo Plus YouTube channel, do they have enough talent? They don't have. Obviously, Diggs was gone. It was like, what is this wide receiving core going to look like? How will that be able to play out this season? And the Bills found a way. Josh Allen found a way. I think the biggest difference is this Broncos team is so much younger with their rookie quarterback. And then also, they haven't been in the playoffs in these last couple of seasons. They had an 8-year playoff drought. So now they're back in the playoffs. Whereas for this Bills team, let's be real. Like, what has been the narrative around the Bills in the last couple seasons? When and how can they get over the hump? So you're right. I did not know if the Bills would win the division this year. I didn't know how things would play out. Laughing out loud because they locked up the division with weeks to go. But all that narrative once again gets piled on Josh Allen of, okay, you made it to the playoffs. You made it. You made another divisional crown. What can you do now at this point?
Yeah, it's interesting because the Bills go into this game 8.5-point favorites. I think right now the line is, which that line may or may not shrink. And you mentioned the Broncos matchup wise, 3-4 defense, 3-4 base defense, which the Bills traditionally struggle a little bit against. They, as you said, are the sack leaders pretty much for the season, but they got a lot of sacks. They got a lot of opportunity to get sacks against some, maybe sackable quarterbacks, if that makes
Might be
any
some
sense.
stat padding there. Yeah.
When you look at just Bo Nix being John and I talked about Bo Nix on the postgame show on Sunday night, somewhat of a game manager, but a guy that can rip it when he needs to. And he has thrown some impressive passes this year. Cortland Sutton, he's got Mims, he's got players around him, that defense. What sticks out to you as the biggest concern kind of going into this game for the Buffalo Bills? Like, what do they have to make sure they keep a handle on, whether it's defensively or offensively?
I think for this team, just in general, for the Bills, like Bo Nix, he's a young guy, but he has done well for this Broncos team. And I think a lot of times Sean Payton is like, all right, we don't really have a run game. So Bo, what can you do? And I give Bo Nix credit. Like, he is more athletic than I was expecting. I mean, he has the ability to make plays. He's also been someone that I think has been able to be a gamer in a way that I wasn't expecting. He's shown a lot of poise. And I think when you have Cortland Sutton, a big body receiver who seems like every 50-50 ball is a, 70-30. I think when you have that, and then I just look at the other side of the ball and their defense and how good that is. I mean, look, you have Josh Allen. In my opinion, he is the NFL MVP. I think you have had guys on the receiving core that have played really well in ways that I wasn't expecting. Khalil Shakir, Mac Hollins. We'll see what Keon Coleman can do and if he can kind of break through where he's at right now. But I think the biggest thing for me when I look at it is just, I know that this Bills offense can score points. I just do have, I'm a little bit curious to see how things will play out because of the pressure that the Broncos are able to bring. And look, Josh Allen, we know how phenomenal he can be. But yeah, that's one thing that I am looking at of just what will it look like when there is so much pressure. And look, I think it's a challenge to the Bills offensive line, who has played very well this season. So when you look at the talent level, the Bills have the more talented roster, the more experienced roster, all of these things. Obviously being at home helps, but this is not just a walk in the park matchup. I look at some of the other teams who, I think of the Steelers and the Texans who are like, oh, we made it to the playoffs. That's kind of the vibe you get of like the wheels are just about to fall off. And for the Bills, that's not the opening matchup that they're seeing.
Yeah, for sure. It's funny because when you look at just the team that the Bills are playing in this first round in the Denver Broncos, I think I don't want to say that I'm concerned, but the biggest concern that I have is kind of the question mark around Amari Cooper. If Amari Cooper can't play in this football game, or if he can't, and I think you said it, that McDermott said he's day to day. They're basically taking it as a day-to-day situation. That just concerns me. Like, it's been such a strange year, Jenna. I mean, it's obviously we've danced around it, we talked around it, we've all talked about it all season long, all the way right up to the Lions game. That offense started to look stagnant. And then they come out against the Lions and they start doing all kinds of crazy stuff that we haven't seen them do all season long, right? And then they go back to being stagnant. Josh Allen says we're holding stuff back for the playoffs.
Yeah.
There's aspects of like, I don't know how am I supposed to feel? Like what?
Jenna, tell them the truth. Tell them the truth, Jenna. No one at One Bills Drive is worried about how Joe Miller feels. Like
that's fair.
I'm close to the
people they care feelings about. No, I think, well, Josh is very intentional about what he says. And
Yes.
actually, my colleague, my coworker, Mike Catalana, asked him after one of the games about essentially saying the offense has looked a little bit stagnant. And he said essentially what you mentioned of, hey, we're keeping some things close to the vest as we get closer to the playoffs. And you're right. That Lions game, that was a kitchen sink, no holds bar. And I think it was dependent on after that game, you had the Patriots, you had the Jets, you had the Patriots again, where you could kind of settle in, be a little bit more vanilla, and then get yourself ready for the playoffs. And so I think I understand what you're saying. I also think Amari Cooper has been in and out of this lineup throughout the season since being in Buffalo. And so while he is a tremendous player and he's offered stability where he's been, I think that wouldn't be, to me, I would be concerned if he was not in the lineup, but I also have seen this team win without him in it. So it gives me a little bit of pause. If you were to tell me Khalil Shakir wasn't in the lineup or even Matt Collins, then I would be honestly a way more concerned because of how crucial those guys have played in big moments and had some really big catches throughout the season.
Yeah, it's been a very bizarre. It was early. I'm in Boston for work, and I sat in the club in Buffalo for 4 hours waiting for my plane to show up because there was a 4-hour delay. And at one point, I'm looking at my phone and I'm looking at the picture of Amari Cooper, who's a number 1 wide receiver. The Bills, make a trade to get him because they were struggling, and I'm staring at his picture, and the dude's almost like a vapor. He's almost like a ghost. Like he had the one game with 14 targets, I think it was, and I don't remember exactly how many catches he had in that game. But he hasn't been. He was injured for a little while, right?
Yeah.
He just hasn't. It hasn't been a huge impact. So, and then it's like I double down on myself. It's like, then why are you worried if he can't be? It's just
no. But I get it because you're like you see what he can add and you see what he has done in the past. I mean, he is obviously an accomplished guy. So you're like, wow, they need him in the lineup. And I think it's like you can never have enough of good receivers in your lineup, obviously. But at the same moment, I mean, if he is not in the lineup, like I said before, they have found ways to get other guys involved. And you would like to have thought that Josh Allen and Amari Cooper's rapport between on the field would be a little bit more further along at this point in the season. That's not to say that I don't think it can click and won't continue to click. But I think at the same moment, I have a lot of confidence in really whoever Josh is throwing the ball to, because we've seen guys step up throughout the season at certain moments. And I think that kind of also plays into the everybody eats. Like some players, it's their game and you just see them kind of take over. And it's been certain players throughout the season that have been able to do that. And I think that's what makes this Bills team much more unique than teams in the past, is because of that mantra and how it has played out this year.
Rewind the tape about 18 seconds because that was exactly what I was going to say. So with or without Amari being in the lineup, what we've seen is more or less this game, it's Shakir. That game, it's Matt Collins with the big play. So I tend to think that within this group, there is a chemistry. There is we can win at all, in the face of any adversity, that someone steps up and something, for lack of a better expression, something chimerical happens where you just get Josh and one or two of the guys and they keep popping and keep hitting. I think it'd be big for Curtis Samuel to be available and run the top off a little bit. I think that clears it out for Shakir, who has been a little bit quiet recently and for good reason, right? I mean, he's been a big weapon for us. There's a focus on the middle of the field where he lives and breathes. So we take the top off now, we get him underneath. It is a little like a little bit like an amusement park ride, Joe, where you're climbing up and there's anticipation and then it goes super fast and then we feel this part where it slows down and you just keep waiting for that adrenaline rush. And I what I've seen from this team, minus 3 of the losses, is that they have figured out a way to generate that enthusiasm. And I think they get it done for those reasons.
Yeah.
I think too, something that we have talked about on the Buffalo Plus channel is that this season there's just like a freshness. there's just a different vibe. I've been covering this team since Rex Ryan was the coach, and you kind of know what you were going to get with the Sean McDermott team. They talk about how well they get along, and there's the culture that's been built by McDermott and Bean and all of these things. But this year, it just there was a lot of questions going in. Like, were these the guys that were going to get it done? How far could the Bills fall? All of these things. And I think there is a unselfishness that Josh Allen has talked about, Sean McDermott has talked about, other guys have talked about. And I love this line from Mac Hollins. He says it came from his time at the Eagles of like, nobody cares who makes the play. And I think that, and obviously that was an Eagles team that won a Super Bowl. And I think that has been emblematic of this season of like, nobody cares who makes the play, but somebody's got to do it. And I've been really impressed throughout the season how in some big moments, there have been guys that you might not expect to make the big play, but they get it done. And doesn't help that you have the unicorn that is Josh Allen at your quarterback.
Doesn't hurt. Doesn't hurt.
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys are able to hear the broadcast, the actual national broadcast from the press box at all, but they actually talked Nance, and it was Nance and Romo this weekend, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Correct.
Nance actually said in the broadcast this week that in their interviews with Josh, he finally said, they asked him, why is the offense or why are things going so well? And he said, well, I don't feel pressured to give one person the football. And what's funny about that is he had danced around it. He had inferred it, like he had whatever, didn't want to say it, whatever. And then all of a sudden he said it, which was striking to me. I think what is interesting about Joe Brady specifically, and this is a great segue as we're talking to Jenna Cottrell from WAM 13. It's great to have you with us. The Lions game proved to me that maybe, and you said you've been covering the team since Rex Ryan, maybe Joe Brady has that, which is crazy. Joe Brady, we finally have that OC right now that has the ability to attack the weakness of a defense, which I feel like this team, and I think Mike and I talked about it a couple weeks ago, this team has lacked kind of that ability to go out and execute and attack somebody's weaknesses, but we saw the Bills do it against the Lions, and I feel like the Bills have that capability with Joe Brady. But that brings up the question that everybody is on everybody's mind now, which is what are you hearing about just interviews, leanings? What have you heard Joe Brady say? Where's Joe Brady at? Because he's got 5 invites now. There's 6 openings. And he's got 5. He's got 5.
I wanted to go back really quick because you talk about Joe Brady being able to attack other teams' weaknesses. And I think that's an excellent point. And I also think the Bills' ability to run the ball this season has been so key for them just being a dual threat and being able to effectively run the football. And I have to give a lot of credit to James Cook. I feel like this season we've just seen a little bit more patience, more of the vision, and honestly, the more confidence. And it has led to really great things for this Bills team. I think Ty Johnson is really a great player as well. I think I've seen some nice flashes from Ray Davis in his rookie season too. So I think that has been leading the Bills to have both their fastball and Josh Allen, and also a really nice changeup that has been something that has worked well for this team. In terms of Joe Brady, I think Ken Dorsey, when things were going sideways last year and they gave the keys to the Ferrari, that is Josh Allen, to Joe Brady, it just seemed like they clicked more. Like on an interpersonal level, if I'm being honest, just watching their interactions, it just seemed like they were both very much on the same page. And I think that, Joe Brady had been an OC before and failed. And I think he learned a lot from that. And Sean McDermott is a guy that was a defensive coordinator, got fired, all these things. And I think Joe Brady talked this week about how much you have to humble yourself and learn from your failures. And he made it a point to say that those relationships with the players as what has led him to be on the level that he is at right now. And he did say in our interviews this week, he said, I want to be a head coach. My focus right now is on the team and doing what's best for the Bills and all these things. But I think, of these guys, it's a highly competitive league. Of course, Joe Brady wasn't saying anything earth-shattering to me. Coordinators want to be head coaches. And so I think for this team where they're at, like, it makes sense because of the success they've had on offense. Now, in terms of being looking at the head coaching openings, like, there's some ones that I would stay away from, but that's obviously a situation where it has to be the right fit. But I'm not shocked that Joe Brady has people calling.
You say that, Jenna, but if you'd like to more than quadruple, if you'd like to do a 10 factor on your salary, going from an
Yeah,
OC
I mean,
to a
that's
head
fair
coach.
too. Like money talks. I don't want to
Yeah,
say
yeah.
no one's
And
offering me millions of dollars to do my job, but I feel like it might feel differently if that was the case.
Yeah.
Another thing that you brought up a really cool analogy to get the Ferrari and Josh Allen, right? Now, my immediate thought was the two previous coordinators were brute force kind of guys. We're just going to do what we do. We're not going to plan. And what I really feel like, if you take that Ferrari reference, and there's something wrong with your car, not necessarily Josh, but the entire offense, and you could take it to a mechanic who will just open up the book and start poking around checking these boxes. But the real mechanic is the one who's going to fire up the engine and listen, understand how it works, understand how all the pieces fit together, and then make your corrections from there. And so I think we saw a little bit of it last year at the end with Joe Brady. There was some stylistic attributes that he brought to the offense. And if you look, and Joe and Jerry and I have been talking about this for several weeks, he is layering on concepts week after week that are building from our base package of split zone, of wide zone, of inside zone. And the same thing in the passing game too. You saw that really slick screen we ran.
I still have you, right, Jenna?
Yeah.
I
get it. Okay.
Now you're back. You're back.
Yeah.
Wait, was I not?
No, you were. John. I lost John. Or did I freeze? Did I freeze?
When I was sick. When
When
I was sick, my mom left me at the 6 years old. She left me at the mall one time, so I'm okay with it. I don't feel abandoned.
What was the question? What encapsulate the question?
I think it wasn't really the question. I was dovetailing what she said, just about the analogy of fixing the car, which is the offense, but by doing it using a skill set of understanding how it's supposed to work better than just brute forcing everybody. Saying we have Josh Allen, we have these guys, we are going to, we're being more concise and thoughtful about the plan.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. No, and I love, Joe, you threw me off because I thought, I don't know, whatever.
What was weird was John spun, like he timed out, but you were still there moving. And I was like, oh, it must be John. But
Jenna and I were having a great exchange. What she said, Joe.
I like your analogy because you're right. I think Joe Brady is a bit more, I don't want to say instinctual, but you're right. Like I get what you're saying of like Ken Dorsey. I can picture him with like the book with his glasses, like, oh, I don't really know. Maybe it's this, maybe it's that. Whereas Joe Brady is like, you know what? I think it's this. We can do that. Yeah. Like, and I think it's that rapport too between him and Josh. Look, I think Brian Daboll did a phenomenal job with Josh Allen. It was also at a different point in Josh Allen's career. Like Josh needed someone to be like, hey, stop doing this shit. You can't be doing this, Sorry, I don't know if I can swear. You're good. I think Joe Brady Josh Allen's at a different point in his career, and Joe Brady can kind of come in, and Josh has more ownership of the offense. But I think that they work so well together, and you've seen that. And you've seen that throughout the season. And you're right, of things evolving and continuing to change, but adding in the creativity that I think this Bills offense needs.
And Joe, when you fell off there for a second, Jenna said that Joe Brady would go to the Raiders because he's a gambling type. So that was Jenna's prediction.
I never lost Jenna. I lost you. That was the bizarre thing about the whole sequence. I apologize, everybody. But we got you for a couple more minutes. It's interesting because when you look at the now 6 vacancies with Antonio Pierce getting fired today, you got to think obviously the Patriots quarterback is the situation. You're not a first-time head coach going to a team that doesn't have a quarterback, or at least a promise for the future. Patriots, Bears, Caleb Williams, and then maybe Trevor Lawrence with the Jaguars. I think what's compelling about the Jaguars is they have more weapons around them. When you think of the wide receivers, Brian Thomas Jr., the season he had, Travis Etienne, and stuff like that. But and I'm not looking for you to answer this question. For me, it feels like I don't know that Joe's ready. Like when I listen, like there's a maturing process that has to take place. And when you think of the head football guy, right, and you think about who that guy is, I feel like there's some years that kind of need to get accumulated under the belt. Now, clearly, if he gets offered a job, he's going to have a very, very difficult decision to make. And it's always bizarre to me when guys make these decisions knowing that it's not a good situation. It's not the great. It's almost like when player X says, "I don't care about the money. I want to win," and then they sign the biggest contract they can sign with the worst team they can find. It's like you don't want to win. You just want the money. So. All that to say this, do you get a sense that he would jump if he had the chance, or do you get a sense that he's more of the Ben Johnson type that's like, no, I've got a good situation here and I got opportunity to learn. McDermott, another potential budding head coach down the road, and Bobby Babich Jr. Like there's an opportunity for him to glean some more years. Like where do you feel like he kind of falls in that kind of like thing?
Yeah, I think that's an excellent question. And I think that I don't know, if we're being honest. Like if that was me, I would be the type of person that I would want more time. But
right.
Sometimes your opportunity is your opportunity and you take it when you can take it because you do not know what next year will bring. And if you are the guy that they want to bring in, you're like, all right, I wouldn't get this opportunity if I wasn't ready. So I'm going to go for it. So I think I get what you're saying. I think Ben Johnson, though, was kind of, people were surprised because they thought, when your name is mentioned in head coaching and you're getting opportunities, you take it. And I think that's what you see a lot of the times around the league. So I hear you, but I also think if teams are offering Joe Brady, it's almost like the draft stock of like, guys, do you play an extra year of college? Your stock could go down.
No,
Things could go
you do not.
Yeah,
no,
exactly.
you do not.
So it's like that's why I think.
No,
think
you
for
do
a lot
not.
of those fans, it's going to be a challenge if Joe Brady were to leave.
I think the unknown here is how much has Joe been worked in with the administrative state of being a head coach. And if he feels like his comfort level is there, then he would opt for a head coaching job. I agree with Joe. You want to go somewhere where there's a decent quarterback. I do think, though, that there's little risk for him because of the team that is put together right now in Buffalo. The likelihood that he has further success next year or similar success still puts him in the conversation for another head coaching job. And if it's for him and his reluctance because he doesn't have experience doing all the administrative stuff, then now he's like, oh, I'm a guy. I need to start doing my homework. But for one, I'd like to keep him. I think that as much as we love Josh Allen, I think the Joe Brady change and add is really the key to the offensive success, frankly.
Yeah, I know. I think that's very fair. So we'll see what Joe Brady thinks of where he is at, and that will be the biggest indicator, honestly. If he takes a head coaching job, I would not be shocked. If he stays for another season, I also don't think I would be surprised because you're also coming back to Josh Allen, and like John Fina said, there's a lot of talent that's expected to be like this year was a soft rebuild. What will next year be?
Yeah. For sure. We're going to go ahead and get you out of here in a second. But before we ask you, I'm going to put you on the spot for the final question, and you can decline. I'm going to give you the out. You can decline if you don't want to answer. But before we do that, why don't you tell everybody where they can find your content, where they can find all of your stuff, and all that stuff.
Yeah, you can follow me on Twitter or X, at Jenna Cottrell, Cottrell. I'm also on Channel 13 in Rochester, but you're probably not watching this in the Rochester market. So if that is not the case, you can check us out on the Buffalo Plus YouTube channel. It's my coworkers, Mike Catalana and Dan Fates. Mike Catalana has been covering the Bills since 1989, I want to say. So it's been a hot minute. And then Dan and I have been covering the team since Rex Ryan. So we've had a lot of Bills, not as much as Mike or you. Obviously, John, you literally played for them, but it's been quite an experience covering this team.
Yeah, the Buffalo Plus podcast is one of the best out there. So if you have not yet seen it, watched it, listened to it, whatever, absolutely. And you guys are all friends of the show. Like we have all three of you on, I would say in a regular rotation, as much as regular can be weekly, without burning you guys out. So go ahead.
It was funny because Mike was like, "Oh, you're going to see Joe. Tell him I say hi." Like it was like,
what am I, chopped liver?
Oh, well, no. But Joe is the one that reaches out. Joe reaches out.
Now it's time for you to ask your invasive and insulting
invasive.
Question.
So you're a journalist, right? And you have to stay biased and objective in some aspect, even though I don't necessarily have a problem with you folks that cover the Bills having a level of rooting interest or fandom. And there's some that do. Sal is a fan, and I think Dan says that he's a fan. And then there's other ones, Perino and Talbot, they're like, we're not fans. So just thoughts. What are your thoughts on the weekend? Do you have not a prediction, but do you have an expectation? What do you think is going to happen? What do you expect to happen this weekend? And again, you don't have to answer, but I'm not looking for you to give a score prediction or anything like that.
No,
thoughts
good.
on the weekend.
I think the key to this game to me is just getting Bo Nix unsettled off the start. I don't want to see him settle in. I want to see the Bills get him off his spots and just have Buffalo kind of be like, hey, this is really cute that you guys made the playoffs, but welcome to the big leagues. I expect the Bills to win. I do. I think I think it's a hot take saying that. I think there's pressure on this Bills team because there's not expectations on this Broncos team. I'm not saying this game will be easy by any stretch, but I just think that the Bills have more experience in the spot. They're playing in front of Bills Mafia. I think that I have a lot of faith in this Bills team in a way that I haven't had, not that I haven't had in past teams, but I just feel like the unselfishness and the belief that this team has, I don't want to say is different than other years, but it's just a different vibe. And I mean that in the best way. So we'll see what that means. But on Sunday, I do expect Bills to win. Yeah. I don't have a score prediction yet, but I expect them to win.
I feel like they're going to beat that spread. I even think that even if it's a situation early where the Broncos get up by 2 possessions, that the Bills could still outlast them. There's a maturity, right? We've been here before, almost like that Texans-Bills playoff game in 2019 when the Bills had a 2-possession game lead kind of going into the second half. And then the Bills, young team, they made some mistakes and kind of do what young teams do. But we're going to go ahead and let you get out of here. Thank you so much for joining us again. We love having you on the program. Let me think. So what, tomorrow? Tomorrow. Hump Day Hotline. John Fina is going to be on the Hump Day Hotline with Jay Spence the King, as I'm still going to be traveling tomorrow. And then Thursday is the Big O Show with Jerry Ostrowski, your first Bills Broncos preview from Overreaction. So make sure you tune into that. He'll give you his 5 keys to the game. But it was so good having every single one of you guys joining us for this live event on the beat with Jenna Cottrell from Wham 13 and the Buffalo Plus podcast. We appreciate you guys. We love you guys. Everybody stay warm out there and go Bills.
Jenna, thank you for joining us. Go Bills.
Go Bills.
Thank you guys. Have a good one.